There's a saying, don't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. This is the story of what happened when I let my family hand me the match. For a decade, I played the part, the good daughter, the successful sister, the family's safety net. I told myself it was love. It was just business, a deal I never signed where my trust was the down payment and my entire future was the price. And the default notice was delivered in a single silent expression, my sister's smirk. I'm Lyra, and I'm 31 years old. Before I share my story, I want to know you are here with me. Just say, listening in the comments, or let me know where you are. I love hearing how far my story reaches. Don't forget to subscribe and join me on this journey where the unspoken feelings of the past finally find their voice. Sometimes even the smallest connection can make a story feel heard. Thank you. And now, here's my story. The glass walls of the boardroom reflected a dozen versions of me, all identical in their severe dark blazers, all listening intently. Outside, Aura City sprawled beneath us, a glittering circuit board of ambition and light, a city I had in my own way helped to build. Inside, the air was cold and still. The predictive model is, for lack of a better word, compromised, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. My executive team shifted in their seats. I pointed to a cascading graph on the main screen, a beautiful deadly curve of projected growth. It's recursively optimistic. The algorithm is no longer forecasting market reality. It's forecasting its own previous forecast. It's a feedback loop, a $50 million echo chamber. Panic flickered across the face of my head analyst. He saw it now. They all did. I'd just saved us from pouring a fortune into a black hole disguised as a unicorn. This was my world, a world of data patterns and cold, hard logic. I was the architect of my own life, and my blueprints were flawless. The tension in my shoulders eased the moment the heavy glass door clicked shut, leaving me alone with the skyline. My empire was safe. I allowed myself a small, controlled smile. Then my phone buzzed on the marble tabletop, a soft vibration against the hard silence. Sarah. Just the name made the armor around my heart dissolve. The CEO vanished, replaced by a sister. I swiped open the message, a flurry of emojis, and a picture of her beautiful and beaming on the cover of a fashion magazine. We have to celebrate dinner at Elysian tonight, I typed back instantly. Anything for the star. I'm so proud of you. Because I was. Everything I did, every brutal boardroom takedown, every calculated risk, it was all to build a world safe enough for their dreams to flourish. They were my sanctuary, my one protected illogical variable. Later that evening in my penthouse, a place I called the observatory, I allowed myself a moment to review the portfolio I'd set up for them years ago. Portfolio 77B. It was meant to be their nest egg, a fund I seeded and managed to ensure they'd never have to face the battles I had. As I swiped through the data on my tablet, a familiar furrow creased my brow. The returns were sluggish, disappointingly illogical for the amount of capital within. I ran a quick diagnostic, a simple sorting algorithm, to flag outliers. And there it was. A recurring monthly wire, always for the same five-figure sum, to a consulting firm I'd never heard of Elysian Concepts. My CEO brain screamed, "Flag!" My training demanded I deploy a full forensic analysis. Who are they? What's their deliverable? Where is the ROI? But then I stopped. I remembered a conversation a few months back, Sarah's bright voice full of ambition. I need to build my own network, Lily, make my own connections, not just be your little sister. I closed the tablet and stood looking out at the city lights. This was her trying to stand on her own 2 feet. A clumsy, expensive attempt, maybe, but an attempt nonetheless. She was learning. My job was to give her the space to do so. I have to trust her. I told myself the words a shield against the cold prickle of data that suggested I was a fool. Lily, you won't believe it! Serafina's voice, effervescent and sweet as champagne, bubbled through my phone speakers 2 days later. The magazine feature is a huge hit. They want to do a full spread on the brand. We're finally going to be a household name. Sarah, that's incredible, I said, a genuine smile spreading across my face. This was what it was all for. Her success was my success. It's just, well, it's all happening so fast, she continued, her voice taking on a carefully practiced note of vulnerability. There's a tiny cash flow hiccup with a new inventory order. It's so embarrassing. Could you maybe just approve a small advance from the fund, just to tide us over until the new revenue comes in? I'll pay it right back, I promise. My finger hovered over the Aura Ventures internal transfer app on my tablet. The request was already there, waiting for my approval. It wasn't small. For a split second, I wasn't 31. I was 8, standing in the living room of our childhood home. The air smelled of my mother's shattered porcelain and my sister's perfectly crafted tears. A priceless heirloom lay in pieces on the floor. I hadn't touched it, but I saw the look of pure panic in Sarah's eyes. So, I had done what I always did. I had stepped in front of her, faced my furious mother, and said in a small, steady voice, "It was me. I did it." Just to make the crying stop, I shook the memory away. I was being ridiculous. This wasn't a broken vase. This was business. My sister was building her dream. I pressed confirm. "Don't worry about it, Sarah," I said. "Consider it a bonus for being a cover girl." I could hear her smile through the phone. "You're the best, Lily. I don't know what I'd do without you." Later that afternoon, an email arrived. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. High-level multi-layered encryption. No sender ID, just a ghost in my machine. The subject line was chillingly simple. "Warning vulnerability, Portfolio 177B." The body of the email contained no text, just a single isolated link to a blockchain explorer. My training, my entire career, was built on threat assessment. This screamed corporate espionage, a sophisticated phishing attempt designed to gain access to my system. A rival trying to find a crack in my fortress. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I forwarded the email to Alex, my head of cybersecurity, with a single clear directive. High priority threat. Potential phishing attempt from an unknown hostile. Do not click the link. Trace the origin, identify the attacker, and block them permanently. Scrub the server of any trace. I leaned back in my chair, satisfied. A threat had been identified and neutralized. I felt the familiar comfort of control, never once considering that the email wasn't a threat, but a lifeline. A key I had just thrown into the digital ocean. Elysian. The restaurant was the beating heart of Aura City's elite, a symphony of hushed conversations, clinking crystal and air thick with the scent of money. Serafina was in her element, glowing at the center of our table, her husband Marcus beaming by her side. My parents looked at her with a kind of blissful pride that always made my chest ache with a strange mix of joy and something else. I sat back content to be a spectator, to watch her shine. Her happiness was my dividend. The evening was perfect until Jonathan Vance approached our table. Vance was a rival VC, a shark who smelled blood in the water from miles away. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Serafina, darling," he began, his voice smooth as silk. "Stunning feature. Truly. I was just telling my team your brand's growth is phenomenal. What's your current customer acquisition cost relative to your Q3 supply chain optimization?" The air froze. The question was pure jargon, a technical gut punch designed to expose a lightweight. I saw the flicker of panic in Sarah's eyes. Her rehearsed speech about passion and vision was useless here. She started to stammer a rambling answer about influencers and brand identity. The silence grew awkward. My father cleared his throat. I stepped in. It was an instinct as natural as breathing. "What Sarah has managed to do so brilliantly, Jonathan," I said, my voice calm and measured, drawing his attention, "is leverage micro-community engagement to create a negative CAC model in the short term. The supply chain isn't optimized for cost, but for viral scalability. It's a high-risk, high-reward play. Audacious, but as you can see, it's working." Vance's eyes narrowed slightly. He knew the answer was mine, but he couldn't challenge it without looking like a bully. He nodded, offered a tight smile, and retreated. The tension at the table dissolved. My mother squeezed my hand in gratitude. Serafina shot me a look of pure relief. I had saved her. I had protected the dream. A wave of satisfaction washed over me. I had done my job. I glanced at my sister, expecting to share a look of quiet understanding, of sisterly solidarity. She had turned to Marcus, and as he gave her a subtle wink, her lips curled into a smirk. It wasn't a smile of relief. It wasn't gratitude. It was triumph, a flicker of smug, contemptuous victory. The look a puppeteer gives her marionette after a flawless performance. In that single, silent moment, my world shattered. It was a system crash. The anonymous email, the Elysian Concepts fees, the shattered vase from 20 years ago. The data points firewalled off in separate parts of my brain for years suddenly breached their protocols and flooded the server. They connected, forming a single, horrifying picture. A single, chilling line of code ran through my mind. I am the system being exploited. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my face remained a perfect mask of calm. I placed my napkin on the table. "Excuse me," I said, my voice even. "I'm not feeling well." I walked to the restroom, my movements steady and deliberate. Inside, I ignored the opulent decor and stared at my own reflection. The woman staring back was a stranger, her eyes wide with a terrifying clarity. The warmth was gone, replaced by the cold vacuum of absolute certainty. I pulled out my phone. My fingers didn't tremble as I typed a single message to Alex. "Unlock the email from the blocked sender this morning. Override all protocols. Execute a full-spectrum deep trace on Portfolio 77B. Immediately." I sent the message and looked back at my reflection. The woman in the mirror was no longer a sister. She was a CEO with a crisis to manage. The war had already begun. I didn't sleep. Dawn broke over Aura City, painting the glass towers in hues of orange and rose, but the colors brought no warmth to the cold space of the observatory. My world had shrunk to the massive screen that dominated one wall, a living tapestry of data streams and encrypted files. The city outside was silent, but in here, a storm was raging. Its systematic, Lyra Alex's voice crackled through the speakers. His face, usually a mask of calm professionalism, was strained. He'd been working through the night with his team. "This isn't just reckless spending. This is a professionally managed drain, an extraction." He brought up the first layer. It was the ugly, straightforward greed I now expected. Elysian Concepts, the shell corporation, was the primary funnel. From there, the money bled out in predictable patterns, a down payment on a yacht Marcus had christened the Serafina, wires to offshore accounts to cover gambling debts, and a series of extravagant charges from five-star hotels across Europe, all logged as market research for Sarah's brand. Each transaction was a small betrayal, a testament to their bottomless avarice. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach, but I kept my face impassive. This was just the surface. I knew it. "Keep digging, Alex," I said, my voice steady. He nodded grimly. "There's more. We found a secondary outflow from Elysian, much harder to trace. It was funneled through three more shell companies to a reputation management firm. A PR firm, I asked, confused. A Black Ops PR firm, he corrected. The kind you hire to destroy reputations, not build them. For the last 6 months, they've been running a sophisticated smear campaign against one of our portfolio companies." He pulled up a name, Innovate Her, a promising tech startup founded by a brilliant young woman I'd personally mentored. My breath caught in my throat. "Why?" I whispered. Alex's expression was pained. He brought up a series of social media analytics and press clippings. "The campaign started 2 days after you publicly named Innovate Her's founder as the future of fintech at the Women in Tech Gala." The knot in my stomach turned to ice. It wasn't just about the money. It was never just about the money. It was about envy. A jealousy so corrosive that Serafina would rather burn down one of my own investments than live in someone else's shadow for a single news cycle. She hadn't just stolen from me. She had actively sabotaged me using my own money as the weapon. My phone rang, splitting the silence. The caller ID flashed Sarah. My thumb hovered over the decline button, but I forced myself to answer. I swiveled my chair to face the window, away from the damning evidence on the screen. "Lily." "Oh, good, you're awake." Her voice was a melody of concern. "I was so worried. You left the party so abruptly last night. Are you feeling okay?" I watched a transport glide silently between two skyscrapers. "I'm fine, Sarah," I said, proud of how even my voice sounded. "Just a headache." "Long week?" "You work too hard," she chided softly. "You need a break. Let's go shopping this weekend, just us girls. My treat." My treat. The words were a bitter joke. I looked at my reflection in the dark glass, a ghost surrounded by a constellation of her crimes. I'd love that, I said. The Cold War had begun. The invitation came 2 days later. A call from my mother, her voice laced with a gentle, pressing warmth that had always been impossible to refuse. "Just a small family brunch on Sunday, darling. It's been too long since we all just sat together." I knew it was a summons, not an invitation. They had sensed the shift, the Arctic chill that now lived behind my eyes. The brunch was a masterclass in psychological warfare. My father talked about the importance of legacy, of how family was the only true investment. My mother fussed over me, telling me I looked tired and thin. "Sarah is so worried about you, Lyra," she said, squeezing my hand. "I know you carry so much pressure on your shoulders, but you must never build walls around your own family. We are your home." Every word was a carefully placed brick in a prison of guilt designed to lock me back into my role. Then came Serafina's move. She pulled me aside to the veranda, her eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. "I need to confess something," she whispered, her voice trembling. She told me that she and Marcus had been in over their heads, that the pressure to live up to my success was overwhelming. She admitted they had been reckless with the fund that they had spent. Too much, too fast trying to build the brand. She framed it as incompetence, a series of foolish mistakes born from ambition, not malice. I was stupid, Lily, she sobbed, grabbing my hand. I was just so desperate to make you proud. We'll pay it all back, every cent. Just please don't be angry with me. It was a brilliant strategy. She was offering me a more palatable version of the truth, a story of foolishness, not sabotage. A version that would allow me to forgive her, to fix things, to go back to being the family's safety net. She was giving me an off-ramp from the ugly warpath I was on. And for a terrifying moment, I almost took it. A part of me, the exhausted little sister who had taken the blame for the broken vase, wanted to believe her. It would be so much easier. Was I misinterpreting everything? Was it all just a colossal, stupid mistake? I left the brunch in a fog of confusion, the seeds of doubt sprouting in my mind. As my car navigated the sterile canyons of Aura City, my secure phone buzzed with a notification. A second encrypted message from the anonymous source. This time, there was text. They know you're looking. They're preparing to wipe the server. The final access keyword is Icarus. Good luck. The message was a bucket of ice water to the face, snapping me out of my sentimental delusion. The tears, the confession, it was all a performance. A smokescreen to buy them time while they destroyed the evidence. My doubt vanished, replaced by a cold, hard rage. This was no longer an investigation. It was a race. The air in the observatory was electric with tension. It was me and Alex against the clock. They're initiating a full data wipe protocol, he said, his fingers flying across a holographic keyboard. It's a good one. We've got minutes, maybe less, before the entire server becomes digital dust. Use the keyword, Alex, I commanded. Find me a back door, Icarus, he muttered, typing it into a command line. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a single protected partition appeared on the screen, a digital island in an ocean of erasing data. I'm in, he breathed. But the partition is collapsing. I can only grab one file package. It's all or nothing. Do it, I said. A progress bar flashed across the screen, a frantic race between downloading and deleting. It hit 100% just as the partition vanished from the screen with a final irreversible error message. The server was gone. All we had was one massive, heavily encrypted metadata file, the last ghost from the machine. It took Alex's team 4 hours to crack it. 4 hours I spent pacing the observatory, watching the city lights come on each one, a pinpoint of a world that no longer felt real. I steeled myself for what I would find the contracts for the Black Ops PR firm. More hidden accounts, the full, unvarnished truth of Serafina's treachery. The truth was so much worse. It's decrypted, Lyra Alex said, his voice flat, devoid of its usual energy. You need to see this. He patched it through to my main screen. It wasn't a spreadsheet or a ledger. It was a video file. A recording of a conference call automatically saved by the server's backup system. The date was from the day after the party. My blood ran cold. There they were. Serafina and Marcus, their faces etched with panic. And on the other 2 screens, my mother and father. She knows Serafina was saying, her voice strained. She left the party right after Vance's question. She's not answering my calls the same way. She's looking. Calm down, Serafina. My mother's voice was soothing, but her eyes were sharp as flint. We knew this day might come. You'll do exactly as we discussed. You will approach her. You will cry. You will confess to being a poor businesswoman. You will make her feel guilty for her own success. Your sister can't resist playing the savior. My father nodded in agreement. I'll get you the name of an excellent lawyer just in case. Someone who specializes in complex family financial arrangements. We'll position this as a misunderstanding. For now, we stick to the plan. I stopped the recording. The silence in the room was absolute. It wasn't a betrayal by my sister. It was a conspiracy. A family business where I was the sole product, and they were all shareholders plotting how to best liquidate the asset. My loving parents, my concerned mother, my proud father. They weren't just enablers. They were co-conspirators, the architects of my gilded cage. I was utterly, completely alone. Alex waited, his face a stone mask, on the video call. After a long moment, he asked the question that hung in the air. What are your orders, Lyra? I turned away from the screen and looked out at the city I owned. The fuel that had driven me to build it love-duty family had just turned to ash. All that was left was the ice. I turned back my face, set my voice a stranger to my own ears. Alex, I said, schedule a board meeting and send a formal invitation to every member of my family. Title it Mandatory Shareholder Review Portfolio 77B. They arrived at the Aura Ventures Tower at precisely 3:00 p.m., a united front of tailored wool and feigned confidence. I watched their approach on my security feed, a silent black and white film. Serafina, in a striking crimson dress, walked with the unshakable arrogance of someone who has never faced a true consequence. My mother glided beside her, a picture of worried elegance, while my father and Marcus flanked them, a pair of sentinels guarding a hollow queen. As they stepped into the elevator, I saw Serafina lean toward my mother, her lips forming a confident whisper I could easily imagine. Let me handle it. She's just throwing a tantrum. They entered the boardroom on the 80th floor, the designated stage for this final act. The room was my domain, a place of cold, hard truths. A single slab of black marble formed the table, reflecting the gray sky outside. I was already seated at its head, a position of undisputed authority. To my right sat my lawyer, Catherine, whose presence was as sharp and unyielding as the building's architecture. To my left, Alex, his face an impassive mask. My family took the seats opposite me, the vast expanse of marble feeling like a courtroom divide. The air was thick with unspoken accusations and the faint cloying scent of Serafina's expensive perfume. My father attempted a strained, jovial tone. Lyra, this is all a bit dramatic, isn't it? A simple misunderstanding, I'm sure. His words evaporated in the refrigerated air. I didn't answer. I didn't even look at him. I simply gave Alex a slight, almost imperceptible nod. The 60-foot screen behind me, usually reserved for multi-million-dollar presentations, flickered to life. There were no spreadsheets, no growth charts, just a single, clean timeline starting with the date Portfolio 77B was established. Alex began to speak, his voice a dispassionate monotone that filled the cavernous silence. He started with the first layer of deceit, the most predictably vulgar. The screen populated with images and receipts. A high-resolution photo of a sleek yacht, the Serafina, bobbing in a Monaco harbor. Invoices from Parisian haute couture boutiques totaling more than the cost of a small starter home. Marcus scoffed, his bravado a flimsy shield. Those are brand-building expenses. It's the cost of creating an image. You have to spend money to make money, Lyra. I remained silent. The timeline moved forward. A new branch of data spiderwebbed out a complex diagram of wire transfers. Alex's voice never wavered. These transfers routed through 3 shell accounts correlate directly with debts settled with the Azure Casino in Macau. Marcus's face lost its color. He sputtered, looking at my father for support. That was a personal loan. A temporary line of credit I was going to pay it all back with interest. The screen changed again. This time it showed the intricate web of payments to the Black Ops PR firm, cross-referenced with the dates and times of the malicious articles and bot attacks targeting Innovate Her. The last of Serafina's composure shattered. "That's a lie," she shrieked, her voice shrill. She shot to her feet, her chair scraping harshly against the floor. "This is insane. We were framed. Someone is feeding you this garbage to tear our family apart, and you're believing them over your own sister." Her eyes burned with a theatrical fire, the performance of a lifetime. Just as her accusation hung in the air, their lawyer, a portly man with an overly confident smile, stood up. "If I may interject," he said, his voice booming with practiced authority. He produced a leather-bound document and slid it onto the center of the table. "This is a legally binding power of attorney signed by Miss Lyra 5 years ago, granting my client, Miss Serafina, full and absolute discretionary control over the financial decisions of Portfolio 77B. While her investment strategies may have been unorthodox," he said, giving a condescending nod to the screen, "they were entirely legal under this agreement, which she herself authorized." Serafina looked at me, and for the last time, I saw the smirk. It was the same smug, triumphant curl of her lips from the restaurant. It was the smirk of a chess player who had just revealed a hidden move, a trap laid years ago. For a heart-stopping second, I saw a flicker of doubt in Catherine's eyes. My parents let out a collective, relieved sigh. They believed they had won. They believed their lives were protected by law. I, however, remained perfectly still. My heart was a block of ice in my chest. I looked at Alex. He pressed a key. The screen split into 2 panes. On the left, a high-resolution scan of the power of attorney. On the right, our forensic analysis program was running, highlighting the signature in a glowing red box. "The signature on this document," Alex stated, his voice cutting through their confidence like a surgeon's scalpel, "is a forgery." Specifically, it was scanned from a birthday card Ms. Lyra sent to her mother 3 years ago. The pixelation density around the signature is inconsistent with the rest of the document's text, and the paper fibers show evidence of laser printing over a pre-existing watermark. We have the original card's image file, the server logs, showing the scan, and the printer's digital timestamp from last Tuesday. It's a very clumsy attempt. The lawyer's jaw dropped. But before anyone could speak, before the full weight of the word forgery had even landed, I nodded at Alex one last time. The screen went black. Then it filled with the grainy video file recovered from the Icarus server. My family's faces, their own voices, echoed in the tomb-like silence of the boardroom. "She's looking," Serafina's recorded voice said, panicked. "You will approach her. You will cry. You will confess to being a poor businesswoman." My mother's voice, calm and calculating, instructed, "I'll get you the name of an excellent lawyer," my father's voice added, sealing his fate. The recording played on a symphony of their deceit. I watched them watch themselves. I saw my mother's hand fly to her mouth, a strangled sob escaping. I saw my father's face turn ashen, the look of a man who had just witnessed his own ghost. Marcus sank into his chair as if his bones had dissolved. Serafina stared at her own face on the screen, her mask of superiority finally shattered, leaving only the ugly, terrified truth beneath. When the video ended, the silence that followed was heavier than any sound. The play was over. I stood up. The movement was slow, deliberate. Family. I asked, my voice quiet but carrying to every corner of the room. A family isn't a shell corporation you can drain dry. I picked up a thick legal binder from the credenza behind me and placed it on the table. The thud was the only sound. You have two options. One, I said, sliding the binder towards them. You sign those documents. They contain a full confession and an irrevocable agreement to transfer every remaining asset. Serafina's defunct brand, your home, your cars. Every hidden dollar into a restitution fund that I will personally oversee. You will be left with exactly what you deserve, nothing. I let the word hang in the air. 2. You refuse. And in precisely 5 minutes, this entire data package, including the forensic analysis of the forgery and this recording, will be delivered to the district attorney. You have 4 minutes and 50 seconds left to decide. 3 months passed. Winter thawed into a cool, clear spring in Aura City. The downfall of my family was not a loud, explosive scandal that graced the tabloids, but a quiet, systematic dismantling. It was the way I did business. No wasted emotion, only efficient, irreversible outcomes. Serafina's fashion brand was liquidated, its assets seized to pay off the debts she had fraudulently incurred. The sprawling family home, the stage for so many of my childhood memories and recent betrayals, was sold. My parents moved into a small, anonymous condo, overlooking the gray expanse of the industrial canal. Marcus, without my family's financial shield, was immediately set upon by other creditors. And I read in a brief financial news alert that he was under investigation for securities fraud. They didn't just lose their money. They lost their gilded world. The final communication I received was an email from Serafina. It was a novel of hatred, a masterwork of blame-shifting and venomous accusations, ending with a line designed to be her final cutting blow. I hope you're happy in that empty glass tower of yours all alone. I read every word, feeling nothing but a profound sense of distance. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it. I simply created a new folder in my archives, labeled it Portfolio 77B, closed, and dragged her message into it. It was just data. The past. A week later, I summoned Nina to my office. She entered cautiously, a brilliant data analyst who still seemed unsure of her place in this corporate stratosphere. Nina, I began getting straight to the point. I've reviewed the personal projects you linked on your resume. Your predictive models on market volatility are elegant. In this city, talent is common. Integrity is the real commodity. You had the courage to send that email knowing it could have cost you your career. That's not something I can teach. It's something I can build a future on. I want you to head our new strategic risk analysis division. Her eyes widened, a mixture of shock and dawning joy. Yes, she breathed. Absolutely yes. In her acceptance, I felt the first foundational stone of a new kind of family being laid, one built on trust that was earned, not demanded. That evening, I stood in the observatory. The city glittered below, the same as it always had, but my perspective had shifted. On my screen was not a stock portfolio, but the website for a project I had poured my energy into for the last month, the Phoenix Foundation. Using every dollar recovered from the restitution fund, I had created a new kind of venture. It didn't seek profit. It sought to ignite potential. The foundation would provide grants, legal support, and direct mentorship to young, underprivileged female founders in tech, women with brilliant ideas but no family safety net to catch them. Women like the one Serafina had tried to tear down. I had taken the poisoned assets of my past and used them to fertilize the future. As I watched the sun dip below the horizon, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from a 19-year-old girl from the city's forgotten warehouse district, the first recipient of a full Phoenix Foundation scholarship. I don't know what to say except thank you, Ms. Lyra. I've been coding in my bedroom since I was 12. You've given me a chance to rewrite my future. I read the words, and a feeling I hadn't recognized in years bloomed in my chest. A genuine, unburdened smile touched my lips. It felt both foreign and familiar. I looked out at the skyline, no longer seeing an empire to protect, but a world of possibilities to build. The sky above Aura City was vast and clear. I was finally, truly free. That's all I have for now. Thank you for sitting with me through this story. If you've ever felt like your family was both your safest harbor and your deepest wound, if you've ever been the one who gives, while others only take, if you've ever been torn between losing them and losing yourself, or maybe you've never been through it, but you simply feel for my story, just comment, "I understand" below. Sometimes compassion, or just the simple act of acknowledging a shared pain, is the first step toward healing. Feel free to share your own experience if you feel comfortable, or just listen. Sometimes that's more than enough. I'll be here. We'll be here. And maybe, just maybe, this little corner of the internet can be a place where stories like ours find a home. Until next time, take care of yourself. And please remember, healing takes time, but you don't have to do it alone.